Okay, so we have our guest speaker today. Her name is Susan Bierbaum Owen, and she is going to share with us her career background. So Susan, why don't you go ahead and share with us some of your career experience?
Okay. I am a script supervisor / continuity for movies or film. I'm part of a union, part of IATSE, International Alliance of Stage Technicians. My local is Local 871, which, sorry, I don't mean to move it. I get a script. I'm considered freelance, so I will contract myself out to studios. So I'll have a director or somebody I usually work with that will make me go in, and I get an interview, and I have to pass the interview with the producer and the director and whoever else. So what I do is I get the script. Because you film a script, maybe a script, I'll get the script and I break it down. I break it down into page count, into scene count, into what exactly the script says. Because the script will maybe span over 10 years or 20 years or a year or a month, I make sure I read it completely and I know exactly what the day out of days are. Like, this is day 57, this is day 61, this is a flashback in 1979. I totally break it down, and I read the script and I know the script inside and out. So when I do all kinds of breakdowns and I distribute it to all the departments, because the director and everybody goes off my breakdown of what the timeline is and continuity of the movie. Like, say I make notes on what big continuity stuff happens. Like, say you have your house catch on fire and you get hit in the eye in scene 57. So I make sure, because you film a movie out of sequence, you may film the end of the movie at the beginning of your 3 to 5 or 2 month schedule. A movie can go anywhere from like 2 to 5 months. It all depends on how much effects and how big it is. So because you may film your end of the movie at the beginning, you don't know what everything's going to look like. So I have to figure out with the director what everything will look like, basically. And I break it down and I make a timeline of everything, so they know, well, this is 5 days later, this is 5 years later, this is 10 minutes. So it's a lot of detail. So when I get the script, I break it down, I time the script, and I try to tell them how long I think the movie will be. Like, if it's 100 pages, it's probably going to be about 90 minutes. It all depends. It's like dramas run about a minute a page, comedies run about 45 seconds a page. There's a standard format that they write scripts at, that they put the script in while they're writing it. That's a standard format that equals out to the timing of the page. So it's kind of like, I'm kind of like the police. I always say I'm like the police. There's only one of me, and there's like 6 wardrobe people and 5 makeup people and 10 hair people, and so, but if I don't catch their mistake, it's my fault. So a director wants to have a really good script supervisor to catch all of the mistakes, basically. I should have started out with, I have a bachelor's of science in home economics. I was going to be a fashion designer, and I fell into the business. A sorority sister of mine was doing a grad film at SC, and she asked me to come do wardrobe one day because I had gone to New York, got a bunch of job offers, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm a total Valley girl. I'm a California girl. I was born and raised in LA, basically. And I was like, I hated New York. So I figured, I don't want to do this. So one day I went down and I started helping. This was a Saturday. I started helping her with the wardrobe on the set that she was directing, this little student film. And everybody kept going, wow, you're really good at continuity. And I said, well, what's that? And they said, well, here's this lady we know. Why don't you give her a call? If you're really a quick learner, you could join. So I was like, okay. So I called the lady and she said, oh, I started a class a couple weeks ago. If you're a quick learner, why don't you join? I said, okay. So I started, this was a Saturday, mind you. I started the class on a Monday. While I was doing the class, I did an AFI student film. I finished the class, finished the USC thing, and I got a feature. So I was literally at the right place at the right time. I mean, I started out low budget. I worked for free for the first couple of years. It took me 4 years to get in the union because to get in the union, you had to, it was like a catch-22. You had to have so many days on a union show to get in the union, but you could never get a union show to get in the union. You know what I mean? So it was a big catch-22. So I was on a show that went union eventually. So that's how I fell into the film business. I literally fell into it because I had a background in home ec. Like I wanted to be a fashion designer. I would look at people from head to toe, and I had a really good photographic memory. So for me, and I printed really well. And I'm pretty easy to be with for 12 hours a day, because when you film at least a 12-hour day, nothing less. You film 12 to 16 to 18 hours a day. It's a long day. So if you're easygoing and nice to be around, and I have to sit next to the director for 12 hours a day, then I was really fortunate. And because I was only one department, it was all I had to look out for was myself, but I had to take care of everybody else's stuff. And it was easy because I was like, oh, well, I could do this. So that's how I fell into it. I've done it. I started in 84. So worked my way up. I did low budget. Like one of my first movies was Trimmers. Remember the movie Trimmers, this with the big snakes? I did that. I did, let's see, what did I do? I did Trimmers, Young Guns, My Cousin Vinny, Grumpy Old Men, Liar, Liar, Life, Nutty Professor, My Cousin Vinny, Major League 2, Independence Day. Right now I'm at a loss for words right now. Batman Returns. What else? Grudge. Uh, Two Guns. Liar, Liar, Life. Bruce Almighty, Evan Almighty. I did a lot of comedies. At the beginning of my career, I did a couple horror films. Then I did a lot of special effects movies. That was pretty good. Then my special effects, I went right into comedy, and I did a ton of comedy. So I worked for Universal a lot. I worked for all the studios, but basically Universal. So that is my job in a nutshell. So any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. No. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Students, if you have any questions for her on any of the things that we talk about today, feel free to ask them in the chat box. Susan, my next question for you is, what does a regular day-to-day, if you're working on a film, you're mentioning 12 to 18 hours, so what does that typical day look like for you? And while you're sharing that, I'm going to be presenting your PowerPoint, so you can refer to some of those slides that you want.
Okay. Well, regular day, you usually start out on a Monday. Usually you have a 6 o'clock call, or you'll have a 7 o'clock call. So, and a call is what time you have to be there. So basically this is telling me that what I just told you, I break down my script, I time the script, I give you a day out of days, I tell you any aberrations in the script, I give you a cheat sheet I pass out a cheat sheet to everybody on what they need to know. But on a day-to-day, I get to the set, say our call is at 7 o'clock. I get there, you have to be ready by 7. So usually it's about an hour drive to somewhere. It's not always at the studio. It may be on location. So you drive to location. They always feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you get to the studio, you get your breakfast. There's always a big catering truck, and you go order breakfast. You sit down, you eat, get your stuff all ready. You go over, and the first thing they do is basically talk about rehearsal and what they're going to do today. So they'll pass out a call sheet. They'll say, okay, these are the scenes we're doing. We're going to start with scene 58. It's going to be over here. Let's do a quick rehearsal. So they'll basically block out the scene, and I'll stand next to the director and take notes, and we'll block out the scene, and I'll make up a shot list for the director and say, okay, well, you need this, this, and this for his coverage. Basically, that's another thing a good script supervisor does, is helps you with your coverage for what to cut from. Like if you've ever been watching a movie and say you're looking at the movie and there's a 2-shot, and then you see the person and it doesn't look like they're looking at the other person. They may be looking somewhere and you're like, where are they looking? That's called an eye line. So I keep track of everybody's eye line and make sure that whatever they say, or however they're looking. So I'm right now looking straight at the camera. If I'm looking that way to you, I'm looking camera right, because the camera is looking at me. So this is camera right, this is camera left. So right now I'm looking over there. I'm not looking at you anymore. If I'm looking right at you, I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking down to the right. So I'm looking down camera left at the gentleman in the corner. Okay. So that's an eye line. So I make sure we're going to do, when we do the coverage, when we put the camera here and it's over my shoulder, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to be looking at the correct spot. So basically we block out the scene. That usually takes about an hour. They then send the actors back to makeup and hair, and that takes a couple hours, because it usually takes a couple hours to light a set. And then we go and we film. and we film until lunch. The state of California says that anything after 5 hours, you're supposed to break for lunch, but we have a waiver. So anything after 6 hours, we have a lunch. We have an hour lunch. And if we don't break for lunch on time, they have to pay us meal penalty, which is like, I think the first meal penalty every 15 minutes is like $15. And then it's like $30. And then it's like $35 or $40. So I remember I did a movie called Independence Day, and we never broke for lunch. I made like 1,500 a week in meal penalties just because they never broke us for lunch. But when you're there for 15 hours a day, it gets tiring. So even if you don't break for lunch, they still bring around food and they feed you. The best perk about being in the film business on a movie is the food. Because they feed you all day long. So not only do you get breakfast and not only do you get lunch, usually by the time you wrap, they'll bring in a second meal, and it will be like pizza or um, tacos, Tito's tacos, or In-N-Out burger. They'll have the In-N-Out truck and the coffee truck and all kinds of stuff. So, and while they feed you the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, there's a thing called craft service. And there's always a table and a truck that is just full of every snack. So you could get really fat. It's disgusting. There's like a table full of every snack, everything. And while you're working, they come around with a tray of like sandwiches and soup and you name it. It's like the best thing ever for like if you're a foodie, because there's always a meat, a fish, a chicken. There's all kinds of food. Everybody like they totally cater to the Hollywood people who are gluten free or whatever. So needless to say, the best part of the job is the food.
Mhm.
so
Sounds good.
so the day starts out like that. So you get lunch, you come back from lunch, you do more of your setups. You probably do, it depends on who you're working with. Like Eddie Murphy, you would only get 6 setups a day. He would never come back to the set more than 6 times a day. So if you had to do anything like over his shoulder, you always did it with his double or his stand-in. He never, if the camera was here and I'm looking at you, you could count on you could count on the fact that it's not Eddie, it's his stand-in. So that's a lot of guys don't do overs. So, which is not fair to the actor because then they're acting to the double and not to the real actor. So, basically it's you come back, you work another 6 hours, and then you wrap. And then I have to wrap up my notes. I have to make sure I check with the camera department and the sound department and make sure they have all the favored prints that the director and the editor need. I take all my notes and I turn them into the assistant director, and they take their production notes off of my notes by saying, we did 4 scenes today, 5 3/8 of a page, 6 minutes worth of screen time, 32 setups. A setup is when you put the camera and you have it over my back, that's 1 setup. When you come over here and you want to do my close-up, that's 2 setups. If you come over here and you're doing a 2 shot, that's 3 setups. So they count on how much, basically it goes to the studio to tell you how productive our day was. A lot of shows nowadays use multiple cameras, which is hard because there's only one of me. So I have to record like in action adventure shows. Like I did a movie called Not Gone. What was it? Gone in 60 Seconds. I did the second unit stuff on that. And I was in charge of like 12 cameras. So I'm running back and forth from the 12 cameras because I record the lens size. I record what the shot is. Right now, you could see me in the frame. This is a close-up. This is a medium close-up. This is a medium shot, basically. That's a wide shot or an establishing shot. So there's all kinds of names for what the shots are. So when the director says, hey, didn't I get a close-up of so-and-so? And I said, let me look. So say we're working on scene 57. Every setup, you give it a letter. So I'm on like 57 Apple. So I'll say, well, let's see. In my notes, you have 2 close-ups. You have 57 Charlie and 57 Edward. And then if you look, I don't know what we're on my notes yet, but my notes on the page, there is on the line, on the page of the script is all the dialogue that the actors are supposed to say. So that's called a line note. So what I do is I'll put on the top of the page 57 Apple, and I'll put a line through the person's dialogue. So say Angelina Jolie is talking and her name is Kathy or something. I'll put a line through Kathy, and then Antonio Banderas isn't talking, and I'll squiggle through that. So I know we have his reaction, but we don't have him talking, and I'll put a line through her. So my line notes and on my script are all marked up basically. So when you see a script, it looks pretty funky. So the page that you look at with all the dialogue on it will have lines all through it. And that's for the editor to know exactly what coverage he has and how he's going to cut it together. So when an editor puts the film together or the director spends months afterwards putting the film together, my notes are very valuable on explaining what coverage he has and what words are said. And I then, on the opposite side of the page, the facing page, I put the scene number, the date we did it, the camera roll number, the sound roll number, the lens size, the shot description. It was a 2-shot or an over the shoulder or a wide shot. And then I put a brief description like Kathy camera left, John camera right. Kathy got up, moved to here, did this and that. We did 6 takes. They were, I time each takes to make sure that the movie's not going to be too long. Like Kevin Costner. Oh my God. I love Kevin, but he is the slowest talker in the whole world. So when you film with Kevin, it's like, I'm a doctor. And you're like, okay, stop. And he'll put a big pause in between each statement. So you're like, shit, you got to either have a big pause where you could cut away to somebody and cut the air out of it, or you have to have them speak faster. So I have all the time producers coming and saying, do we have enough movie, or is the movie going too long? Or the director will say, okay, I could cut here and cut here. And I said, well, yeah, I just cut away to a cutaway. So there's all kinds of rules in making a movie that used to be diehard rules. Now everybody thinks they're reinventing the wheel, and a lot of people think, oh, this is great, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we don't care about eyeline or screen direction, and everybody's done it. So there's really not a lot new when you get a young director who thinks he's all excited and it's like, oh, don't worry, I can do this. And I'm like, okay. So my day is taking notes. It's when an actor, running lines with an actor, or an actor during the take will mess up, and I'll yell out the line, or he'll say the line and I'll give him the direction. Or because an actor has to do the same thing over and over again, like say I'm sitting like this and we're going to do a 2-shot. We're going to come in for my close-up. If my hand isn't here, it's not going to cut together. If you come from a 2-shot to mine, you're going to say, well, where's the hand? Like in Pretty Woman, Julia Roberts is eating a waffle or a pancake. And then in the next take, she's eating some else. And then she goes back to the pancake. Well, it's because most actors can't do the same thing twice. So it's my job to tell them, like, if you're going to do something different, keep your hands like under here. So the camera can't see it when we go in for your close-up. If you put your hand here, you got to put your hand here all the time, because it's not going to match if it's not here. And say, see my hair is like this. If the actress does this and her hair's back like this, and we do a 2-shot and we come in for the close-up and her hair's like this, that's not going to match either. So even though there's 4 or 5 hairdressers and the actress and the director, if I say, hey, Pete, the hair doesn't match, can I go in and put it back? So I watch for everything to make sure that it's going to cut together. So I save a lot of money and time for the production, because you're there all day long, because they're paying for everybody. It's so expensive. There's probably a crew of like 200 people there, at least 120 people on a set. So it all depends if you have actors or if you have extras. So there's all these people, and your day is scheduled completely. So I help keep it going. Like, hey, wait a minute. Like they also say they want to do everything shooting this way, right? They want to go, my fingers are the camera. So they want to do everything shooting this way. Okay. And then they want to turn around and do this way because of the light. So I have to make sure that when we do everything shooting this way, if there's 6 people, we get all their close-ups, we get all their overs, we get all the wide shots, and then we turn around, because to turn around, it takes a lot of time for them to light. And if we have to keep turning back and forth, it wastes a lot of time in your day. So they plan out your day based on the light, based on the location, based on the actor availability. Like very rarely do you have one actor who's in the movie the whole time on the movie. You usually shoot them out within a week or 2, and you shoot all of their scenes. So That's our day. So you start at 7, if you're lucky, you end at 7. Most of the time you wrap at 9. But then there also says there's a turnaround. So if like you're on a TV show and you come in at 7 and you wrap at 7, but you wrap at 8, then you have to come in at 8 the next day. So by the time most TV shows, I didn't do a lot of TV, but most TV shows, because they were just long hours, and by the time you got to the weekend, you would start your Friday on like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because you just kept going later and later and later and later. So your weekend was really only a day. So
Mm,
that's a
yeah.
day in the life of a script supervisor. Does that make
Thank
sense?
you. Yeah, that sounds like it could be very much a variation of all different things. The food sounds amazing, but your
Yeah, the
time.
food is great. And and the locations can be wonderful. Like I remember I did a movie called Young Guns 2, and I was pretty new in it, and I was young, and it was like the Brat Pack. It was Emilio and Lou, and Kiefer was dating Julia Roberts at the time, and we were sitting on top of this mountaintop in where was I? New Mexico. And we're on this mountaintop, and Bon Jovi comes to visit the guys. So he's decided he's going to write all the music for the movie. So every single day, I'm in New Mexico outside on this beautiful mountaintop with the horses and the cutest guys in the whole world. And that's another thing. I was like the only girl with all these guys. It was a great job for a long time. So I guess I would be in trouble now with Me Too. But it was so much fun. But I remember going, I'm getting paid for this. I'm in a beautiful location with like the top stars. Bon Jovi's sitting here singing Down in a Blaze of Glory, and when you're on location, you all kind of stay at the same hotel or you all kind of stay at the same area. And most of the time you all go out together because the actors like kind of use you as a crutch or a safety thing, like protect me basically. So you go out with the actors to dinner or drinking and stuff, and you kind of surround them so nobody can get to them, so it's
Very
been a
awesome.
wonderful experience.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Do you care? I'm going to go through the rest of your slides, and you can kind of speak to the photos of each one. Is that okay?
Oh, did you freeze?
Oh, can you hear me?
I
Oh,
can now, yeah.
okay. I'm going to go through the other slides that you have in your presentation, and then you can speak to the different photos you have.
Okay, let me make sure I can find them. Do you have one up yet?
Yeah, I have them on the shared screen. So I'm going to go to the next one here. Can you see the image? It's one that you sent. It's a little bit blurry, but it looks like it might be a script.
For some reason, it's breaking up.
Okay, let me go back.
It's breaking up. Oh no.
You're fine.
I can't see it. You can just tell me what it is and I'll explain it.
Well, why don't some students have asked questions in the chat?
Sorry,
so
it's breaking up. I see you.
You're fine. I'll ask questions.
Okay. I see your screen. Now, see, that's my script. Okay, now I see it. So do you see the script? See on the right side of the script, see all the lines that go through that? That's what they're called line notes. And that's how I was explaining how there's a line through the dialogue. And then on the left-hand side of that picture is the date, the scene number, the camera roll number, how many takes, if it was good or bad, if the director liked it or not. That's basically my handwritten notes that is on the script that goes to the editor.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go, is there anything else you want to share about this photo, or should I go to the next one?
That's just, a lot of people do their script notes now on computer. I don't. I'm old school. I'm old. I'm 59. I print very well, as you can see. And my job, like a lot of people get all freaked out about just the notes and they have to do it on computer and everything. And I said, our job, 1/10 of my job is notes. So that's my notes. So why do something different if it's not broken? And the editor has never complained and they could totally read my writing. So those are my notes. Okay, next one.
Thank you. Okay, let me get to it. So this one, you have a photo here.
Now this, that's correct. That was one night when we went out bowling with the crew. That was probably on Get Smart, I think, or Evan Almighty or Bruce Almighty. I don't know. I've worked with Steve 3 times. He used to be my neighbor also. on the right hand side, the page, that's my breakdown. Like I'll say, you could see a line through the handwritten notes, like say this much of that is one screen day. We did those many scenes in one screen day. So that's my day out of day breakdown.
Good, thank you. Okay, next one. This one.
That is because you say you have 100 scenes. This is just a stupid little scorecard. And I know it's stupid, but I do that and I cross out how many scenes we do. And that way, when people say, oh gosh, do we still have a lot of the movie left? If they see red pen scratched out, it's a visual. It's amazing how you could tell somebody something, but when they see it, it makes them feel so much better. So I think that's like the second page of a scorecard, basically crossing out scenes or pickup shots that we have to do. And that was Batman Returns with, oh gosh, the first Michael Keaton. That was an interesting show because that was filmed all I did second unit on that, and that was all at Warner Brothers lot. And Tim Burton had decided that he wanted to see the breath of everybody, and in order to do that you had to have below 32 degrees. So they had all these air conditionings on the stage at Warner Brothers, and it was freezing. So see, I'm in a big down coat, I'm on the inside of a stage or either on the back lot, but it was freezing, so we could see the breath. It was like, oh. And then he realized when you get a ton of people in the stage and it's that cold, you still don't see the breath. So it was like they did it digitally. It was just like, oh, for months I froze my butt off. It was so cold, and we were on a stage. So
sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so the next one here.
Batman Returns.
You have your
Who's that? That's De Niro. That was a movie called Grudge Match. Now, on the left-hand side is my production report. The producers, the assistant directors get the information from this report. So I fill it out as the day goes on. It's like this name of the show, the day, because maybe we'll do 6 months or 5 months or 4 months. It's like day 35 in our shooting. So I'll put the name of the production, the day of the shooting. Our call was at 7 o'clock. We got our first shot off at maybe 9 o'clock or at 7:45. It all depends. Some days we've gone a whole day without getting a shot off at all. Jim Carrey, I did a couple with Jim Carrey. He never showed up. It's like we would have 7 o'clock call and Jim would show up, like, and we're supposed to have lunch at probably 1, right? So Jim would show up at like 12:45 and you're like, oh man. So once we got him, we would be all ready for him. And then we'd just shoot through lunch without him. Or, once we got him, he was late every single day. He lived in Malibu and we're filming at Universal. And he decided that it was too long to drive because he just couldn't get up in the morning and get to Universal earlier. So he had a helicopter bring him in from Malibu to Universal every day. And he still was late. And he was like one of the producers of the movie. And I wanted to say, you should fire yourself because you're costing so much money. So that production report is, I will put the day at the time, what time our first shot was, what time lunch was, what time our shot was after lunch, what time we wrapped. I would put how many scenes we did, what scenes we did, what shots we owe, how many minutes if screen time we had, how many I can't see it right now, but yeah, how many minutes, how many seconds, how many pages, everything. And then I would keep track of everything and put my note for the day. And then that would go to the producer in the studio, and the studio would go off of those. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so the next one.
That's a call sheet. So a call, that's Evan Almighty. That's Steve Carell as Noah. That was interesting. That was Virginia for 7 months. A call sheet is, if you could see, you get a call sheet every day. On the front of the call sheet, it will say where we're going to be, what scenes we're going to do, and all of that. This is the back side of the call sheet. Basically, I would turn it over and say, okay, I'd find my name, Susan Bierbaum Owen. My call time would be 6 o'clock, or most people would be there at 7. I would have to be there at 6:45, or everybody had a different call time. Like makeup people always had like a 4 a.m. call because they had to get the actors ready before 7 o'clock. It all depended on how much effects or how much makeup. So you always got your call time on the back of this call sheet. You get every night before wrap. the ADs would walk around and pass out the call sheets, and you'd go, okay, and you'd look at the call time on the front, it would say 7. You flipped it over to see what time you had to be there, and it would be sometimes different, sometimes 7, sometimes 8, sometimes 9. It all depended on what you were doing that screen day. Okay,
Thank
next.
you. Okay.
That's the front of the call sheet. So up on the left-hand side in that middle box, you'll see that it would say what this description of the day is and it would give you a number. Like underneath where my thumb is right there, there would be a list of the actors that were going to be there that day. And they have a number, like say Anne Margaret was number 3 and Jack Lemmon was number 1 or whatever. So then it would, above that, it would say, this is the scene. We have actor number 1, 3, and 5. And then their call time would be on the front, and the page count, the scene count, and how much we were doing, that's on the front. And it would be have the day's call. So in the picture is that my director, Pete Siegel, who I've done like 7 movies with. On the left, I think it's Kevin Hart. And I think that movie was Grudge Match with Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro. Okay. Now, and see how I'm sitting next to, I'm right in the video village. I'm sitting next to the director, and then the actors come up and they play back their takes sometimes. And one of the most insecure people, Barbara Streisand, used to come up to me afterwards and say, I like number 2. Did you like number 2? Did you like take number 2? Because I really like take number 2. I'm like, okay, Barbara, I'll put a note. So they look at it and they say, oh, I like this, or I didn't like that. So all their little notes would go in my script. So the next one. That is Tom Shadyac on the right. He is a wonderful man. He did like Patch Adams. This was Liar Liar with Jim Carrey and Jennifer. Oh God, what was her name? I can't think of it. This Tom Shadyac did Evan Almighty, Bruce Almighty, Patch Adams, Ace Ventura, Liar Liar, Nutty Professor. Wonderful director, just the sweetest guy. So that's me, Jim Carrey, and Tom Shadyac. And Jennifer,
So, Susan,
I can't think of her name. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Would it be okay? I'm going to ask you a few of the questions that have come into the chat, just because the next few slides are pictures that you shared. So while we're showing the pictures, I thought you could answer some of the student questions. So one student wanted to know who your favorite filmmaker to work with is and why.
Tom Shadyac, the gentleman in this picture, is one of my favorite because he's funny. He's been doing it a long time. He's just a nice, truly nice guy. His father started St. Jude's Hospital with Danny Thomas. So Tom is just a wonderful man. And I love Pete Siegel. I've done like 7 with him. It's just nice to work with somebody, they know what they're doing, and they're just easy and nice to work with. So it was a pleasurable experience.
And then another student asked, sorry, can you hear me, Susan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. I can. Yeah. Sorry, I overlapped you.
No, you're fine. So another student wanted to know what makes a successful shot day possible or shoot day possible.
The coordination, like if you make your call sheet, when you get the call sheet, it will say you have to do 3 scenes and 3 6/8 pages. So that is, if you can make that in 12 hours or under, that's a successful day. Basically, if you make your call sheet. And a lot of times you don't. A lot of times you don't make your call sheet and you have to come back and do more scenes, or they have to add it to another day, maybe somewhere down the line. So that's what makes a successful day, making your work scheduled for that day.
And then what are some misconceptions beginner filmmakers make most often?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think, I don't know. I would say maybe thinking that they're reinventing the wheel because mostly everything has been tried already. With the mistakes that they make, maybe not appreciating their crew, maybe, or maybe getting too upset with people. I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean, most of them, I think, are extremely grateful to have the opportunity to film, so.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. So we're going to go through your pictures that you shared, and then we'll go back to some questions. So the next picture here.
Okay. That is Kirk Douglas and Ed Begley Jr. And that was Greedy with Greedy with Michael J. Fox. That was a fun movie. That one was like 12 ensemble cast almost all the time. And I remember I was at lunch one day and the prop master came to me and he said, "Hey, Susan, was the door open or closed in the dining room?" And I'm thinking, there's a door in there? I don't know. I go, ask me after lunch. And I remember walking in and I saw it and I go, oh, it was open to here. So when I saw things, I knew if it was right or wrong. Sometimes you would ask me, I go, I don't know. I have to see it. Like I remember Eddie Murphy and Nutty Professor. He played so many different characters, and he used to ask. He would joke with me. He'd say, "Hey, Susan, what hand is Mama?" And I said, "Mama's left-handed," or "Daddy's did this," or He always asked me questions because he wanted to see if I would get it. You know what I mean? So sometimes actors who are really good at their craft will like joke around with you and see if you're on the ball. Or did I cross my leg right to left or left to right? And I'll go, let me see. And I go, oh, it was right to left. So I have to see it sometimes to know. So,
yeah. So then your next slide
so
here.
that was a fun movie with Michael J. Fox. That was the Young Guns 2 where Bon Jovi came and got to sing, and that was really fun. But that was cold, filming outside in the desert. I remember I got audited one year by the IRS, and because they spotted the film department, and they said, "Why do you have 5 raincoats?" I said, "Because they're all different weights, because I'm outside 12 hours a day. I have every set of Gore-Tex, rain gear, you name it. I had every weight and size and everything for rain gear or snow gear." Or when we did Grumpy Old Men, it was so cold. It was like minus 30 degrees. Warner Brothers bought us all these outfits. They were like $1,000 outfits that we looked like the Michelin Man. It was like you walked around going, "Oh, I can't move." So that was Young Guns 2. All right. That Morgan Freeman, my very favorite actor in the whole world. I loved him. Just the most very smart, intellectual man. Like I would be sitting there every morning, he'd come in, and I would be doing the New York Times crossword puzzle in pencil, mind you, and he had already done it in pen, and we'd chat about the puzzle and everything. Just the nicest, most professional actor I've ever worked with. If you ask me one thing, he's my favorite. I think on the left, I was pregnant with my son, and that was on Evan Almighty, and on the right, that was on Bruce Almighty, or switched, Evan Almighty, Bruce Almighty. So that was on the left with Anne Hathaway and Steve. That was in Russia. That was in Get Smart, and they shut down Red Square for us. That was one of the coolest experiences. We only went to Russia for like 2 days, but the one day we're there, we had to film all night in Red Square. So it was an interesting experience filming in Russia in Red Square. And then Diane Keaton, I think, is in the middle. That was a movie called Running Mates, and that was in Washington, D.C. And that was really fun. Oh, and then Dwayne on the bottom right, that was in Get Smart also. So
good. And the last one?
This one is Kevin Hart in I do love my job. I'm very fortunate. I did it for over 30 years. I'm semi-retired now because I have kids that are in college and my parents are 87 and 90. But the first 15 years of my job, it wasn't a job. It was so much fun. So that's Kevin Hart, and then Kevin Costner in the middle there. And then Harry Connick Jr. from Independence Day.
Sounds
Just
good.
a sweetheart.
Yeah. So that is the end of the slideshow. So we did have another question come in the chat when I was showing one of those last few slides. For you, who is the most troublesome actor you've had to work with?
That's horrible. The most troublesome, but was sweet, was Lindsay Lohan. We did a movie called Just My Luck, and she disappeared for like weeks. It was like, I remember I just had my kids and I was in Louisiana and New Orleans, and we'd filmed for a couple of days, and then she just disappeared. And we were sitting in our hotel rooms because they have to pay you because they don't want to send you home. So I remember sitting there for a week and a half, doing nothing. They were waiting. We were waiting for her because we didn't know what happened to her, where she went. So
Yeah.
she's the most troubled. She was a great little actress. She could hit her mark. She could say her line. Just a sweetheart, but just troubled. It was sad. Nastiest one I've ever worked with, Terry Hatcher. Hated her guts. Just a mean, nasty lady. So didn't like her.
Okay.
So I guess out of 30 some odd years, there's only been 2 actors I really didn't like, and it went her and Jeff Goldblum was not my favorite. So, oh God, you're recording this. Don't say anything.
Your secret is safe with us.
Like yeah, I just didn't like them. I'm sorry. Otherwise, everybody else, fantastic.
Sounds good.
They all, but you got to remember that actors are all just like us, and they're basically the most insecure people you've ever met because they all want to be somebody else. I mean, the older actors like Jack and Walter and Kirk Douglas and all them and Margaret and all the older actors were pleasurable because they started when it was a craft and they took their job as a job. So they were so nice and so just down to earth and didn't have any star thing about them. And then you get the younger ones who don't want to come out of the trailer and don't want to do certain things. And you're just like, really? You're getting paid a fortune. You should be so grateful you're here. And they just, so
yeah,
that's about it. But, oh yeah, I forgot this is being recorded.
No, you're fine. You're okay. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the information you're sharing. Another question came in. Does the union encourage mentoring programs?
You know, a long time ago, they used to have it, but then they didn't. And the union got really hard to get into. And the only people who got in were like related people. Now it's so different. I think there may be some mentoring programs. I'm not sure. I know there were some programs, diversity programs, probably like 10 years ago that they were like having people come in and be PAs, which is a production assistant. My local doesn't because my local, there's only one script supervisor a show. It's pretty tight. You know, they don't want to give it to anybody else. They want to do it themselves. So,
what would a student, if a student is interested in going into, being a script supervisor, what would some experiences be that they could do now to kind of get that experience and get their foot wet a little bit in the industry?
Well, like I said, I literally fell into it, and it was by doing a student film, a grad film at SC and one at AFI. So find out who's doing grad films and offer yourself up. I mean, I worked for free the first couple of years, or barely got paid. And every year I gave myself a goal because you could flounder in this business for a long time. And if you don't have goals, then you don't really go very far. So I would say, okay, in 5 years, if I'm not in the union, I'm going to change jobs. In 5 years, if I'm not doing big films, I'm going to change jobs. And I got married late in life. I got married at 38. I said, if I'm not married by 40 and have kids, I'm going to become a director or producer. I loved my job. It was a great job. But it was like, I kept giving myself 5-year goals, and you got to stick with your goals because otherwise you could just flounder, or you could be doing something for a long time and just never make it, so you have to make goals and really push it and try to do it. And it's a hard job because it's kind of like, I remember one director said, we're kind of like carnies with a better dental plan, because we're vagabonds, because you go from show to show to show. I did features all the time. So I would contract myself out for like 2, 3, 4, or 5 months at a time, and I wouldn't be home. I mean, I missed a lot of weddings and birthdays and stuff like that because you're gone so much. Most people who are married and have kids take TV shows, but TV for me was like $1,000 a week less, and I'd always work into the weekend, and it just wasn't good for me. It wasn't a good fit because you just were working these long hours and into the weekend, and it's a hard job. Everybody thinks it's so glamorous. I mean, highs when it's good, it's flipping great. But when it's bad, you're sitting there in the freezing cold after like 14 hours going, can the sun just come up now? I mean, I've fallen asleep on the set before, and you're just like, can I go to bed now? Or you've been out in a snowstorm or rainstorm or out on an ocean. I mean, I've filmed all over in all different kinds of situations, and it's been a fantastic ride, you know, and like I said, Terry was okay. Sorry. I feel terrible now. Everybody was great. It was 30 years and I only disliked somebody, 2 people. So that's not bad, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned you mentioned earlier when we had talked to I think it was on Monday, yesterday, about how the industry has changed from the digital age. Can you talk about that change and what that has looked like now for the industry?
Yeah. Like when I first started, I remember I couldn't wait to get older because then I could pick and choose my jobs and I would have more experience. Well, it changed because a long time ago, I'd say probably 20 years ago, the Teamsters gave up any 7 days, which meant now instead of working on Monday through Friday, like we used to have, the union used to be great. You would get like overtime, you'd get meal penalties, you get overtime after 12, golden time after 14, double time after the weekend. You know what I mean? There was all these rules where you could just totally rake it in. Well, then the Teamsters gave up any 7 days. So then the producers then would change their work week where you could work Tuesday through Sunday, or, you know, any of those 7 days could be your work week. So that kind of screwed things up. And it took away a lot of your perks on stuff like that. Also, when digital came in, film used to be really expensive. So when you got to the set, you would rehearse and you would rehearse and you would rehearse until everybody knew what it was and what everybody wanted to do, because takes would be expensive to print them, you know, to film. Film was very expensive, and then you would only print certain takes, and I would make sure they printed the right takes. Well, now digital, they put a chip in the camera. A mag used to be 10 minutes long. So the longest, you would never run the camera 10 minutes. You would cut or you would reset and then take it again. Now with digital, a digital chip, I think it can be an hour. So you could put the chip in and they'll say, okay, let's start. Well, you go to start and there's a goof and they'll say, oh, go in and reset. And the camera's still running. They just keep running and running and running. So there's no, it kind of lost a little bit of the art because it's so fast and so hurried, and oh, that's okay, we got a piece over here and a piece over there. So with digital, because film isn't expensive anymore, they just put up a camera and shoot and hope they get what they want. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, so
Thank you.
it changed a lot in that aspect. And like before, like I can't, if you were a camera operator and say I'm standing up and you go to get me, and like when I stood up, you cut off my head. If you went to dailies that night and you saw that, you know for sure the camera assistant would not be there the next day. The camera operator would be gone. Now they don't care. They just keep going. You know what I mean? So it changed the craft in that way, where it's like they tolerate a lot more inconsistency, but because it's just keeps rolling, it's cheaper. So it's changed a lot.
Thank you. Yeah. We had 2 questions come into the chat. Students, we have about 10 more minutes for this biz chat. So if you do have any last minute questions, now is the time to type them in. So these 2 questions here, let's see, what is the name of the digital program for Script Supervisors?
Oh my gosh.
You know?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because like I said, I'm so sorry. I don't know that because I do it all by pencil and pen for red operations. I know there's a couple programs. You could just probably Google it. I think there's only 2 programs. If I heard it, I'd know it, but I apologize. I'm sorry. I don't know that.
That's okay. Thank you.
There is a program for it. Yeah.
Okay. And then
I'm sure if you Google it, we'll be there.
Okay. And then you mentioned that because you are an independent contractor, you do an interview with a director and producers. What's that interview like, and how competitive is it to actually land that job, that position?
Well, one, you have to get really thick skin because you have to interview for, or you're up for every show and you never know if you're going to get it or not, even if it's with a director you really like, because sometimes because I'm part of a union, they may film in New York. Well, in New York, they want New York IA, and they don't want, if the movie starts in New York, I can't go there. So if it starts in LA and then goes to New York, I can. But if they start the film there, I can't. They have to hire locally. So that's hard. Usually I have to meet with the director and the producer, and it could be, they could probably have 4 or 5 other people up for the same job, you know. I mean, you just have to get good at interviewing, and you have to, and not take it personal, because when you're interviewing with the director, you're sitting next to them, or you're going to be sitting next to them for 12 hours a day. And if you think you don't like them or they don't like you, you have to trust their instincts, because you don't want to be miserable for 5 months, 12 hours a day with this person. So it could be crushing sometimes. You're like, oh, I didn't get the show, but then you get something better, you know? So you have to interview. And the union doesn't do anything, basically. You get put on a roster. And if they're looking for a script supervisor and they don't have one in mind, they could call the roster and say, okay, Susan's available. Do you know Susan? And they'll say, yeah, bring her in for an interview. Or we need somebody for the day, call Susan. You know, she's on the roster. So that's what the union does. The union basically doesn't get you a job. I was approached quite a few times by agents, but for my job, it didn't behoove me to give somebody else my money. You know what I mean? I could get my own jobs because I had done it for so long. I was very fortunate to fall in with the right people. So I was always referred by somebody good, or I worked with the same directors all the time. But a lot of bigger departments have agents that find them jobs. So I didn't, but I could have, but I didn't. So.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And then let's see here. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you to get on this recording is, what kind of skills or abilities do you think students should be focusing on right now if they are planning on going into this type of career path?
Figure out if they want to be in the film business, it's fun, and just start as an extra, or find somebody where you can go visit a set and see what everybody does, because you never know what everybody does. Like, there's a gaffer, and the gaffer hangs out with the head electrician and the cameraman, and they talk about how the light is, and you know, or there's a grip who just carries C-stands and sandbags and puts up flags for everybody and moves the heavy stuff, and there's set decorators who just move stuff all around, and there's art department who design the sets and make the sets, and there's shoppers who just go shopping for everything, and there's wardrobe people. There's like usually a big star has their own wardrobe person. Basically see what you really want to do, and in order to do that, you have to go try to become an extra, or find somebody that will let you come on a set and see it. Or for my job, like I said, I fell into it, and there used to be 2 people who taught classes. I don't know who teaches classes now, or even if they do, but you got to find somebody who will be willing to mentor you, maybe, and that's a good thing. There are some people who still do that, you know.
And for, let's say for me, I don't have any experience in the film industry. If I was interested in looking into opportunities to be an extra, would I contact like the studios themselves, or would I contact like casting agencies?
No, you could contact, like, there's casting agencies like Central Casting. There's casting agencies. There's magazines like Vanity, Variety, and Hollywood Reporter and stuff like that. Usually in the back, there's always stuff for like student films and stuff like that.
Okay.
Pick up a trade magazine, and in the back they'll be like, you want to work in the film business, or call AFI and see if are anybody doing a student film? Do you need any help? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But yeah, casting agencies, and get a trade magazine. Or IMDb is an internet movie database, and that's an app, and that has a list of the movies and who's on the movie and when it starts and stuff like that. I think there's some information on upcoming films on IMDb.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Actually, that's a good segue, because I have uploaded into the chat Susan has an IMDb page with all of her work that she's done in film, and I am putting that in the chat for you guys. So if you guys have some time, you guys can check out her IMDb page. And like she mentioned, there are options in there if you are interested in getting more experience in the film industry. IMDb has some great resources on that platform. We do have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to push now for that survey. I'm going to be posting the survey link in the chat for you guys to copy and paste into a web browser as well. And then lastly, Susan mentioned earlier in this BizChat the benefit of having a mentor. And she spoke with me earlier on Monday and shared with me that she'd be open to being a mentor for any student who's interested in getting more information on being a script supervisor and having just a mentor in the industry. So I'm going to be posting her email in the chat as well. If you want to communicate with her in a one-on-one capacity to get some more feedback, get some of your own conversation going with her, you can do so by emailing her. Thank you so much, Susan, for taking the time. And I know you had to travel to find some good internet connection for us today. So I appreciate you doing that for us and taking time. Oh, I think you're muted. Let me see. I'm going to unmute you if I can find you. There you go.
Okay, the best thing I could tell you guys is try to figure out what you want to be, and just like AFI, UCLA, USC, they all have like classes that they teach. Like find a class. If you want to be a screenwriter, they have classes that you can take. There's all kinds of classes that you can take if you want to do certain things. Unfortunately, I'm kind of semi-retired right now, so I'm not working because it's been a long, it was a fantastic career. If you could fall into it, that's great. I don't know if I'd want to do it again now because I'm old and tired, but there are things you can do, like get some of the trade publications and just start looking, or Google something, like find, is there a class in whatever, or how do I become a grip, or, there's books on stuff. That's the best advice. If you want to do it, just find a place where they're going to have a show and go down and ask them if they need extras, So, and right now, a lot of stuff is in Atlanta. Right now, because of COVID, they're starting up in California, but there's so many regulations with COVID. But in Atlanta, they're doing a lot of stuff. And in Louisiana, they still are doing a lot of stuff. So
sounds good.
That's about it.
Thank you.
Hope I wasn't too boring, guys.
No, it was great. It was great. And we appreciate all the photos and everything, and just reminiscing about your career, and your stories were great too. So I appreciate that. Okay.
Okay, good.
Sounds good. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.